Thank you, Acting President. Now, I initially came into the House today. I had a different set of notes because we were just going to sort of pretty much wave it through, thinking that the government needs this money and it's to progress and to have that money to look after the people of Western Australia. But after listening to some contributions, I've ended up changing some notes and reprinting some things because listening to the Honourable Steve Thomas and hearing some of the stuff about how the government hiding money and what they do with it and save it ready just to sort of waste it. It's like it reminded me of times back working in the government department where it gets to end of financial year and everyone just goes out spending like kids in a lolly store, and it's not really good practice to get to the end of financial year, because for them it was because if they didn't spend it, they didn't get it again the next year. It's a little bit different for the government because it doesn't work that way. It's taxpayer money, and I recall back in 2016 when the McGowan government came in, the big promise was they were going to be fiscally responsible, they were going to pay down debt, they were going to pay it off like a car loan or a house loan or something, and that West Australian would be better off without the Barnett government because they've put us into this debt. So, so then for the Cook government to come here now asking for a massive blank cheque, it's not a great thing, like $1.2 billion on top of already the normal Treasurer's advance limit. I mean, I was looking at, we've heard it, it takes the discretionary spending to about $2.4 billion, which I think works out to about $6.5 million a day, I believe, every single day of the financial year. That's every day that the Treasurer can almost have zero upfront scrutiny. No one's actually knows what this money is going to be spent on. And again, like I refer, one thing I do like about the Honourable Steve Thomas, when whether it be about the coal or other things, he brings some really good information, and that's what I love about what in this House already, the debate and starting to learn more and more and understanding and hearing things, and it really gives you a different perspective on the bills that come before us. So as I said, that's about $6.5 million. Then basically in the mid-year review, which we've heard also that was mentioned about in December, they said they would only need $802 million from the original $1.2 billion. That left 400 million odd sitting there unspent. And still, now we're looking for another $1.2 billion on top of that. Now, that's $1.6 billion of taxpayer money that basically can't be bothered to be explained. They're not going to tell us, I haven't seen any. I was asking outside the chamber about, have I missed something? Has there been some stuff put into Parliament that explains where this money needs to be used and what it's going to be used for, and was it budget blowouts, or what was it? Like, maybe I'm just missing it. Maybe, we're not just talking like your grocery list, how much you're going to spend for the week. We're talking about hundreds of millions of dollars, billions, over $1 billion of taxpayer money, and that's just not great. We can't just think that it's okay to wave a bill through and say, yeah, no worries, Treasurer, we're just going to give you this extra $1.2 billion on top of already the money you're being given to allow for. We understand there are budget blowouts, there are reasonings. When you do budgets, there are, anyone who's had budgets to work by, you understand they do blow out. There are things that cost a lot more money and different things that come up. So it's good to have that bit of allowance, but then to come back again and need another $1.2 billion without any real accountability, without any, let's show the people that are going to be voting on this that you want the money for about some of what they're going to actually need it for. Now, as I've heard continually a few times, I think mentioned today, about that this is the 7th time the Treasurer has asked for advance authorisation bill in a row under this Labor government. What started off as a genuine contingency sort of thing has seemed to now be like a bit of a slush fund, going by, like I said, what I heard the contribution earlier, like how money is shifted around and put, and it's like, well, we want this bit of slush fund because we're going to have this surplus, we've got this money we can spend. So now it's not a contingency about what we really needed, it's about can we just go out spending, like you do at the end of financial year in the government departments, like I mentioned before. And that's not a great thing because it's not our money. It's the people who elected us to come in here and to make sure we're accountable with their hard-earned dollars. There's people out there that aren't coming in here, sitting in pretty good conditions. They're out there working really hard physical labour for their money, so we should be doing the best we can to make sure that any time we're talking about, going, okay, here's $1.2 billion, that money is going to be spent wisely. And to really be told that, we don't really have, any explanation of where it's going to be spent. This is sort of just in case we need it, like that's not good enough. There needs to be something for me to have confidence to approve this bill, to say, yeah, no worries, because governments need to be able to operate, and I want to assist in that and say, yeah, straight away, go for it, have the money, but not if they're not going to show a little bit of a hand and say, hey, well, these are some of the things, even if they're not definites, this is what we're looking at, this may be a problem, or we've had a blowout in this, or whatever the reason. So I don't believe, hard-working taxpayers, hard-working West Australians would be very happy with myself, and I'm guessing many other members of this House, if we were just to say, yeah, no worries, we don't need to worry about what that, we're not, like I said, not $1,000, we're talking billions. If we were to do that, I think I would be letting down the people who had voted for me to do that. And then also when I looked up, basically the sort of hypocrisy that's involved here with the Treasurer, and that, when it's been mentioned as well today that back when she was in opposition, she turned down, I believe, this legislation. She rejected it and then lectured the government about their need to be transparent. I mean, there's no transparency here about what this money is going to be used for, from what I can see. I understand some of it. There is that, like I said, it's that contingency. They need a bit of money for unexpected things, but there is no transparency about where this money is going to be used. And like again, like I said, when it alarmed me, which I hadn't heard, with the Honourable Steve Thomas mentioning about how that surplus sits there and it gets pushed along, and then because that makes me think, once you've got all that money, there's all these things. You just go out in the community, you would be making commitments and giving money away because you've got it there, and because you haven't had to be accountable, you haven't had to tell the people in here or tell the public, this is what our plan is for this money. It's just, oh yeah, we've signed off and given you that ability to do that without any scrutiny on that. So again, I think it's the largest Treasury advance in West Australian history. So if that's correct, I'm only going on what I looked up. That's pretty concerning, that it's one of the largest things that's been asked for, but then there's no detail given for what it's going to be used for. So that really concerns me, that we're not getting pretty much anything. We don't want to just rubber stamp things through. One Nation isn't about that, and I'm sure most members of Parliament wouldn't really want to do that, but at the moment it felt like today I was going to do it pretty much because I thought, well, the government needs it, it's something, but I've obviously changed a little bit of where I'm going with this after listening to things here today. So we shouldn't treat taxpayer money like a bottomless ATM. That's what's got us into this situation, both in Western Australia and Australia, with $1 trillion debt federally and 30 odd billion or whatever it is in our state. We've had so much money rolling into this state through iron ore, you know, royalties and gold, and the amount of money that we've had in this state. Our debt should have been, there should be hardly any debt, but instead, you know, we've heard it, building racetracks and all these different things. We didn't really need a racetrack. These things that could have been, you know, not done when we've got debt there. You know, it's all good claiming surpluses, but it's not really like we've got money when you really still do owe money. It's sitting there in debt. So, yeah, I think it should be enough of the blank cheques. There should be more transparency and accountability with this government, making sure that, you know, we should be treating the money like it is ours, like what I would do at home, what you would do at home. And I'm sure as heck you know, don't believe we'd be just, yeah, okay, let's, you know, have this pool of money we're just going to spend and we're not going to, you know, account for it in any way. There's got to be some sort of accountability so that, especially if it's not your money, if you haven't worked for it, which we haven't, we're just the people here having to decide how it's used, and that should be being used in the best interests of the people who are out there earning it. So anyway, I'll end it there by saying I just think we should be putting West Australian taxpayers first and making good decisions, and I can't support this bill.